Hello, hello! Here today with a follow-up commentary on patch 0.9.2 on the Premium Tier 10 Pan-European, or in this case Swedish, destroyer Smaland. Here with some more games under our belt. Following my first impressions, I have put some more time onto this ship, but apparently you need to put 80 games onto this ship to get onto the leaderboard, so that might work cut out for me. Anyway, I'm now running a 19-point captain. I've since put some more points onto my Friesland captain and refined my play a little bit. Anyhow, today we're on the map Warrior's Path. The mode is Domination and it's pure tier 10 matchmaking. I'm gonna look at the radars and then destroyers. So they have a Des Moines and Salem in terms of radars, also Venezia, which you can kind of count as half a radar due to his potent anti-destroyer capacity with his semi-armor piercing shells, as well as the Smolensk. Destroyer-wise, we have Gearing, Z52, Shimi, Harugumo. So we outspot the Harugumo no matter what. He's 6'2 to my 6'1 at best. Gearing is either 5'9 or 5'6. Z is 6'1 to my 6'1, and Shimakaze's 5'6. So we have 2 matchups where we're outspotted, and 2 where we're very close. Now the Harugumo I definitely don't want to run into, so that one's going to be a bit of an annoying matchup, but having spawned below C cap with a allied Harugumo of my own, hopefully I can use him to help fend off any gunboats I might bump into. In terms of gun power, I outgunned Zed and Shimakaze fairly easily, and the Gearing is a bit of a closer matchup, but as long as I kite properly, it's favorable, especially since I'm running the Friesland's captain, which means I have BFT and a reload module, which makes me a superior gunboat to, say, a Haland, which has the same guns, but typically speaking will be built for torpedoes. Now I have RPF. RPF tells me something is north of C. The Harugumo's quite boldly venturing in. Gonna back him up, but take the other angle on the cap. Now my torps have a 100-second cooldown. This is the stock cooldown. I have essentially 0 upgrades for them. Seeing the Minotaur pop up, I am going to hold off for a little bit. He's still my RPF vector, kind of. My torps are, of course, the Pan-European torpedoes. Gonna launch a spread now at this point. They have 12 kilometers of range, and with the torpedo up speed module, do just under 80 knots. Torps sail past my bow. And I have radar coverage of the entirety of the cap, so let's see what's up in the hood. It's a Gearing. Gonna wait and engage the Gearing once he moves forward. Oh, he's giving quite a bit of broadside, so I'm gonna actually switch to AP temporarily. Turning away. He has teammates of his own. He's starting to angle now, and unlike me, he doesn't have a heal. In spite of having that smoke, force him to sail out of most of his smoke at this point. I do note there's also a Z here. On the other side, allied cruiser radars don't have lock-on for that salvo. You can see the lazy shells have to lead quite a bit at this range, trying for fire, and thankfully my allies do help me with that. Still radared now anyway. Gonna try and force the Z away. Alright, probably hovering inside his hydro might not be the most advisable considering there is a Minotaur I was harassing. Up a heal. Okay, he decides that he wants to fight me open water. There is the, what's his name? Venezia, however. So I'm gonna have to do this real fast. He's only now smoking, but has already taken far too much damage. Gonna angle against the Venezia and the Minotaur now at this point. Wait for my gun bloom to fade. My high-speed speed boost, or short duration high-speed speed boost, which puts me up to 40 plus knots, is now over. So dodging is going to be quite more of a manual task. Venezia just fired, I think. Yep, I saw his muzzles flare. Able to dodge the majority of the salvos, and I do survive, having assisted in the destruction of 2 destroyers. That did cost my allied Harugumo his life, however. You see both radars over there on the far side. Although one of them has since been dispatched. Looks like the Harugumo there is behind the Minotaur, that's what was shelling me, and a Kremlin dips into the cap. I currently have my torps on the super narrow spread. Pan-European destroyers, of course, have the narrow and super narrow spreads, so a bit of an interesting variation. Took quite a bit of damage in the trading there, mainly from the allied ships of those destroyers. Gonna look and see if I can torp this Kremlin who's shoving, but since his path is currently unpredictable, I would prefer to wait. Looks like he is gonna just proceed forward, so I'm gonna put the ultra narrow spread there. Triple first and quint. So you will note that the Smaland, if you are unaware of the Smaland's capabilities, oh, he's slowing down hard, / he beached. So it looks like those are a whiff. A bit unlucky there. But you will note that the Smaland has 2 uneven tubes, kind of similar to some of the French destroyers that have come out during 2019. She has a triple and quint tube. Oh, those might hit the GK even though they weren't meant for her. And these are staggered with the quint tube sitting in the front, and the triple sitting in the back. Now the Smaland is a fairly specialized anti-destroyer ship. Unlike the Haland, you don't build for the torps as I mentioned, and she doesn't. Unlike the Haland who has 2 quints, I have those staggered torps. I still am going to manage to get 2 hits on the GK here. I have done my job at this cap. Note the Harugumo is here, but I outspot him, so I'm not too nervous, but hovering around. My team should take firm control of A, having dispatched the ships there, leaving them to push through here. Do have to be careful, I'm hovering on the border. Torp's about to come back up, gonna reinitiate my maneuvers, get the right position. I know there's a Harugumo and Smolensk nearby. I did score flooding. Let's see if we can get another hit on the GK. Now he's likely to be running his Hydro, but with how fast these torps are, and his relative inability to maneuver with the mountain to his right, I reckon I can probably grey line them and without too much trouble land some hits. There's the Kremlin, Smolensk, and I know somewhere else in that smoke is the Harugumo. Looks like the GK was moving a bit slower than he is now, so those torps are going to be a whiff, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I land one? He is turning in, but he is going to end up taking one. You'll note the damage is extremely low, as with all pan-European torpedoes. Continuing to stalk, but I'm not in an ideal spot for the Smaland. Ideally, you would want to find, this is more of a Haland position, or a Shimakaze position if you prefer. Because the Smaland is rather specialized in this destroyer hunting role, you do pay the price for that in that can be difficult. Now I do have all my speed boost charges to reposition if I want, but I'm concerned about the presence of the Harugumo in this cluster. I do have a small spotting advantage and an HP advantage, but I think what I'm going to do is dump torps and then engage him. Let's switch to guns. I have to be ready to disengage at a moment's notice. He's fairly low HP, which is why I'm engaging him. He actually does outgun me quite a lot. Gonna pick him off, and now I just have to survive the Smolensk with my heal. Smolensk was not quite ready, so I just had to survive for my gun bloom duration. Now if I border hump like this, I'm gonna have some trouble, especially with the Smolensk's large saturation of shells. I'm gonna scum slide a little bit while angling in order to mitigate the angle, and I do manage to survive. In the meantime, my torps do connect in the distance. They're launched vaguely in the direction of the Kremlin, but you see them contacting the Smolensk there, and inflicting a small amount of damage. Smolensk meanwhile trying to blind fire me, but I did get off the border in fact, so his shots are in vain. So enjoy burning credits, my dude. You can see that last heal just about barely helped me make it through. And with the help of the Smaland's whole complete package, we were able to do our job and participate in the destruction of 3 destroyers. Looks like I took out his engine. Kind of hard to say where he's going to go. My spreads are kind of narrow. Maybe I should have used the slightly wider standard narrow spread. I'm considering engaging him as I come up behind this rock here. I'm gonna wait for the torps to get a bit closer. Now the Smaland with the IFHE changes in patch 0.9.2 did actually end up seeing some small plating nerfs in terms of her midsection plate. She now has 16 millimeters everywhere, and apparently if you want to sit there like a moron, like that Smolensk, well, you will take the fast torps. He kind of sat there with his engine broken by that first torpedo salvo for quite a bit, and as a result I'm able to pick up those torpedo kills. I'm up to 8 hits now in spite of this not being a dedicated torpedo boat. I'm gonna use my speed boost to reposition at this point. It's not great for repositioning purposes, it does accelerate you to a very rapid pace, as I'm gonna collect this cap before the end of the game. But at only a minute in duration, it's not advisable to use it as a repositioning tool. Instead, it's more valid to use it during brief engagements to give you an extra boost of speed and maneuverability, so that you can better get away. The Smaland is a very large destroyer, and as a result, as you saw during the various engagements, especially that first one that ended with me tangoing with the Z-52 but also getting shot at by the Venezia and Minotaur, it does need the extra speed with this large, rather sluggish hull in order to evade shells. Now the Smaland is not quite as sluggish as the Friesland that comes before her. Speed boost might have been a bit excessive, and I'm actually gonna almost speed boost out of the cap because of it. Oh, am I gonna slide out? Oh, oh. Alright, a bit embarrassing there. Obviously an error. I'm expecting this GK to move away. Now he might be secondary spec'd, in which case his secondaries will open up on me, but since he's not looking at me based on the main guns, I am gonna take this time to fire upon him. He's already on fire, so I'm going to switch to the armored piercing. He's angling away ever so slightly, putting HE into the superstructure nevertheless. And in the end, he is going to go down to my allies. Nice quick game there, showing off the Smaland's destroyer killing prowess. 87,000 damage, 93 shell hits, 8 torpedo hits, 4 incaps, 3 kills, 6 floodings, and 3 spotting ribbons, and a dreadnought of all things to earn as a destroyer. Base experience wise, a nice 2100. This is, of course, something that is going to happen when you hunt destroyers. Damage wise, surprisingly enough, most of my damage came from the Smaland. He decided that eating torpedoes is fun, so he did take 26,000 torpedo damage to form the majority of my torpedo damage as a whole. Distribution-wise, it's actually pretty unusual in terms of this game having more damage from torpedoes. The Smaland is, in the end, a gunboat rather than a torpedo boat, but it's just we used our guns on destroyers, we used our torpedoes on heavy ships, and then because of where we were situated on Warrior's Path, we weren't able to use too much natural cover in order to fire, and because the Smaland lacks a smokescreen, while firing openly when you have a Smolensk and Minotaur in the area is frankly suicidal. Anyhow, before we head off into the second round in the Smaland, oh, thank you for the Twitch drop. Okay, thank you for tabbing me and ruining my replay commentary, or I guess game commentary. Anyhow, module wise, take your standard consumables, so your priority is probably damage control, followed by heal, and then speed boost and radar equally in that order, but I would definitely take at least premium damage control. But if you can afford a tier 10 premium that costs 2 million free experience, you really should be running premium consumables. Excuse me. Upgrade wise, fairly simple. Main armaments in slot 1. In slot 2, if you have a radar module, you should mount this radar module. And apparently I have a radar, so I don't know why I haven't been running it. Is this the one I got for my Puerto Rico? I'm not actually sure. It is not. Interesting. Did I sell a radar ship? Oh, that is my Worcester's radar module. I am regrinding the line. But it's going to be a while, so might as well just mount this. So if you have a special radar module, I would recommend running it. If you don't have that, you can also run the speed boost module to improve that 1 minute fast speed boost. And mounting the radar module brings you up to 24 seconds as opposed to 20 seconds of radar duration. Which doesn't sound like much, but remember with the full gun build here, we have a 1.3 second base reload without adrenaline rush. Slot 3, take torpedo speed. If you don't really feel like you need the speed, then you can take AA guns or aiming systems. The turrets turn very well, so you don't need main battery mod 2. But I would recommend torpedo module. Slot 4 is no-brainer, propulsion. Now you don't start and stop that much, but your what's it called? Your base rudder shift is actually fairly reasonable. So I prefer propulsion, so it's kind of up to you, but most destroyers, generally speaking, take propulsion, especially because you might stop and cap and such. And you may stop behind cover and make use of it. Didn't do it in that last game, but hopefully in the next game we'll be able to show that off. Slot 5 destroyer, so you take concealment. No arguments there. And then slot 6, you want to emphasize your anti-destroyer role, so you take main battery modification 3. Now if you want to play a bit more hybrid, you can take torpedo tubes mod. That'll shave exactly 15 seconds off to put you to 85. But I feel like you should min-max with the Smaland and emphasize your role as a destroyer hunter. If you want to play with more of the torpedoes, then you should probably just play the Haland instead, which is the exact same ship with the exact same insane potential gunpowder, but much better torpedoes because she has 2 quints compared to your quint and triple. Captain-wise, I am using my Friesland captain. Friesland's perfectly suited. The Friesland's also a very potent anti-destroyer ship, although it plays a bit more like a small cruiser than a destroyer. But anyhow, very standard gunboat stuff, so priority target, so that you can know when you can potentially open water gunboat. Into last stand, into survivability expert, into concealment expert. Very basic destroyer build. From there, I would recommend probably BFD first, which magnifies your gun power by 10%, and in addition also magnifies your AA by 10%. The Smaland has pretty respectable AA. We did not have a carrier last game, but with just BFT, she goes up to 434 continuous DPS per second on very impressive auras in terms of their range. You can see the 6 kilometer long range and 4 kilometer mid range, which means your AA engages quite far out. After BFT, that's 13 points by the way, I would probably go for RPF first and then wrap up with Adrenaline Rush. That's the build I prefer. I think Adrenaline Rush is a very, very good skill, but it's kind of overrated. You want flat duration bonuses first, like BFT, and then I prefer the information of RPF to Adrenaline Rush in terms of when I'm grinding a non-19 point captain. Altogether though, this is my Friesland captain, as you can see from the specialization. Anyhow, first game went pretty smoothly, but we did not get to gunboat that much. We did dispatch some destroyers, but after that we were relegated to being a torpedo boat, which is kind of one of the Smaland's weaknesses. She has very superlative anti-destroyer capability, but when it comes to fighting open water against enemy surface combatants of larger size class, she is not the greatest. That combination of radar plus powerful guns, however, is a very nice one to have, like the USS Black before her. It makes you an extremely potent scout destroyer, but lacking the black smoke, you have to play with your speed and heal instead. Now, of course, these weaknesses are mainly applied to playing solo, as I am playing right now. If you have div mates, you can shore up many of the weaknesses of the Smaland just by divisioning her with a ship with smoke, and that will pretty much cover up. Now, coming up into this next match, some nice pure tier 10 matchmaking. Nice to see. So some nice consistent commentary over the two games, hopefully. Assuming I don't kill myself. We'll go over radars first. So they have a Des Moines and maybe a Minotaur, but not much else. A Smaland as well, I guess, who is diffed with the Zhao and Yamato. So if I see the single Yamato in the game, I know that there's a Smaland in the area. In terms of destroyers, they have a Shimakaze, Hirugmo, and Smaland. So Smaland is obviously me, we match each other, and we can also keep each other from disengaging with our radars. And then there's a Hirugmo, who, as I mentioned last game, we outspot just barely, and a Shimakaze. So hopefully it's one of the latter two and not the not the Shimakaze, because being outspotted sucks. I am RPF located, and my RPF tells me, well, something is here, but it's the beginning of the game, so of course something is here. Anyhow, spawning above A, I have a Moskva and a Henry and Yamato behind me, so a pretty potent group. A radar with rail slugs, and a pretty heavy HE threat, as well as a kind of universal anti-battleship battleship. I'm gonna start on the outer edge, and then swing inward onto the cap. Now the Smaland, as I mentioned last game, is fairly large, but unlike the Friesland at tier 9 that has preceded her by about probably almost a year now at this point, she actually is quite maneuverable. She is similar in size to the Friesland, but she just handles much better. She has superior engine power. Now she does lack the Friesland's hydroacoustic, and her American smoke, so she lacks some of the utilitarian purposes, but the superior base concealment and the ability to break concealment borders by just popping radar is definitely a pretty powerful tool. I think what I'm going to do here, since I don't know where the Shimakaze is that I'm going to stalk the edge of the cap. See a GK and the Thunderer, still don't see the Yamato. There's 4 battleships, so there could be up to 2 battleships here, although typically it's mirrored spawn, so I'm guessing the missing battleship will be there. Des Moines does pop up as he opens fire, so I'm gonna be cautious. Smaland in the middle. My torpedoes are loaded, but I really do want to see if I can get something to happen first. Gonna dump both tubes. I'm gonna anticipate that he's gonna turn in. He might try to radar here. I'm right on the edge. Switch back to the super narrow. He's escorting a destroyer. Maybe I should have just dumped the torps in his direction. Alright, the surprise has been ruined, but my Yamato seems to have gotten a pretty good chunk out of him. Pop the speed boost immediately. I was reversing, so I'm going to juke the first wave of shells. And if he accelerates, or continues to accelerate, he might well take those 12 km torps. I did launch them at just over 10 kilometers. Kind of sprayed them in that direction. The Zhao spraying me. Oh, looks like that Des Moines is dead AF. And I get a smokescreen in front of me. So we do duck out and survive the radar. Gonna damage control here just because I would like to get back into the fight. GK is pushing. I did get the radar threat, but I have a sextuple, which tells me it's the Hirugmo. Hirugmo with a Zhao behind him, kiting away. Don't have my tubes yet, do have to be wary of the hydro. Hirugmo left the smoke and did pop his reload booster. RPF tells me he's not in the smoke, and he just waltzed away, which is perfectly fine by me. They no longer have a radar threat, so once these torps are up, I should be able to give this GK a piece of my mind. I've switched back to the super narrows. This is the better way to do it, but he's turning out in a way, so better to give him a wide spread actually. Just gonna dump both tubes without staggering too much. He's taking a lot of fire from my battleship anyway. The GK is now closer than any other intervening threat. Do have to be careful of any potential Zhao torps. I have lost sight of him. I'm not gonna bother shooting at this point. Should be dead, but I do need to watch the corner in case the Hirugmo decides to pull some shenanigans. I don't have a speed boost right now up to respond quickly, so I do have to be very careful, and my allies are going to dispatch the GK in short order here. There's that Zhao that we mentioned. He is actually going to glide behind the smokescreen, so I'm able to fire once at him before I lose vision by taking advantage of vision mechanics. Unfortunately, he seems to have fully turned away. big chunk from my Yamato. I'm taking a bit of a risk here. I do finalize the cap though, which is all I care about. I'm gonna try and light a fire and annoy him. He may have taken citadel damage, in which case he might have broken his engine. From that brief engagement with the Yamato, he chooses not to fire, disengaging of course. Which leaves me free to contest what I assume to be a Smaland, Harugumo, and Smolensk at B. So this is going to be a very dangerous cap to contest. Gonna have 3 very powerful HE threats. There are the Zao torps that I mentioned. We're currently in pretty firm control. Let me kill 2 ships at my cap, and looks like they wrested the cap from the other enemy team after dispatching that Minotaur, so they literally can only have 1 radar left. Gonna have to be careful about this approach into this cap here. I have a Zao and a Gearing with me, as well as a KSD Smolensk. Don't know where he wants to go. My speed boost is ready, slowing down just to allow him to pass by. Smaland is still hovering in the cap. He may try to borrow a Smolensk smoke. I cannot see at this moment. If there is one, oh, there is, using the map key. Looks like the small one has gotten stuck. I'm outside of his radar range right now, so I'm going to pop my speed boost just to get into engagement range. I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to go for a torp run versus the Smolensk. I'm going to go for super narrow onto the Smolensk first. And now I'm going to pop my radar. Now he can't counter radar me. And remember, there are a ton of ships here. There are in fact 3 people targeting me now. Trying to force the Harugumo into the smoke where I've torped. Switch over to the Smaland. Smaland has yet to decide that he wants to shoot me. Maybe he reversed out. You can see the lazy shells of the Smaland at range, meaning that we've done minimal damage to each other. Thus far, I don't think I've actually hit him yet, in fact. Finally, at the end of my gun bloom run into the smoke, the Smolensk does decide to fire. Looks like I missed with the torps. He's a bit off to the side. But there's an open cap. I don't know why my pink Shimakaze didn't take the cap. It's been open for a little bit. He was in it at one point, but I guess he reversed out or something? Not sure. My Smolensk, on the other hand, is going to end this enemy's Smolensk's life. Looks like Russia doesn't like IKEA. And this is going to be a very low damage game. However, the radar threat is now gone. So now I can probably force my way into the cap. I beat both the Smolensk and Harugumo in concealment. And again, we're not going to be doing too much gunboating. We dispatch, in this case, a Des Moines and push a Harugumo from the cap. And thus far, that it seems to be the extent of our contributions. Enemy Shimakaze to the north does dispatch my Zao. My torps have reloaded. And the enemy Smolensk has left the cap, which means I should be able to take this without too much trouble. RPF telling me that the Smolensk is in fact the closest ship on vector, suggesting that the Harugumo has left entirely, perhaps to go cap this. You have a Shimakaze on Shimakaze engagement. My Shimakaze is slightly down on HP. That enemy division is still alive, but they're sitting very, very far back, so not able to influence the match that much. In spite of having 12 km on my torps, I would prefer not to chase torp. Just gonna take this cap, unlike that last game where I slid out, embarrassingly enough. My radar is in fact up, so it would be satisfying to radar the Smolensk out of that cap, except he does manage to actually get himself killed. Looking for something pushing toward me, so that Kremlin is the only thing really in range at this point. The question is whether or not he'll angle in at some point, because I doubt he'll hold that angle. Right now I'm firing the Quint, so I do want to be a little conservative. Slowing down just a bit to make the turn. Gonna kite back toward the Yamato. He might be a better target. But the Kremlin is in fact lower, so again I'm reduced to being a torpedo boat. Well, you know what, at this point, fuck it. Can't always have everything be like that. And at this point, I am going to engage this Shimakaze, who is spotted by his gun engagement with my allied Shim. There's only 2 battleships in front of me other than the Shimakaze, so I'm going to risk engaging against that Kremlin. Okay. Apparently, my radar doesn't want to engage itself, because I was hitting the wrong button. You take some trade fire from the enemy Shimakaze, but this radar is going to presumably end his life. And that Kremlin that I torped at evaporated while I was doing that in kind of tunnel visioning, along with the Harugumo leaving a fleeing Yamato and a completely invisible Yoshino. Nice try. Shimakaze guy, nice try indeed. This game's gonna be a little more disappointing than the last game, but I'm just doing my job, which is something you have to do sometimes. Not every game is going to be glamorous, damage farm fest. At this point I'm going to chase, and I probably will open water in spite of the presence of the Yoshino. I still have every heal, and I can disengage at will. They have no vision tools to break vision. Yoshino apparently has fucked off to the edge of the universe, so I doubt we'll be seeing him again. Get close to about 11 kilometers before I open up due to my slow shells. Alright, we're at 11. I'm gonna try and land some shells. I'm aiming to land shells on the stern. Note the Yamato is moving away, so it is necessary. Oh, someone already lands a fire on the stern, which is disappointing because I'm really just going for fire damage because, well, I'm a destroyer. However, as I close the distance, I might be able to access the midsection of the ship. Still just hitting the rim barely. He's turning in. Increase the lead. Finally, I got some pen damage as I get access to the superstructure. Popping speed boost here. At this point, he's giving broadside. Switch over to AP, which has slightly higher DPM. You can see that actually I'm taking 1,000 to 1,500 chunks out of him with AP, so AP, when applicable, is the superior munition. Yoshino fires at me, but I have plenty of time to dodge. His shells are actually fairly fast, but not that fast. And I was running my speed boost, so I'm still fairly maneuverable. Added an extra 10k damage there, don't mind too much. Just gonna pop my heal and open water to the Yoshino. Now, I normally would not do this, but there's absolutely nothing stopping me in this case because I have plenty of allies. Again, he's starting to go show broadside. In anticipation of that turn, I'm just gonna switch over to armor piercing, see if I can get the better alpha AP shell to eke me out some more damage, but unfortunately it's not gonna happen. Still gonna win the game, however, which is the important part. So only 36,000 damage this time, but 122 shells, 2 torpedo hits, 5 incaps, 1 destroy, 1 kill, 1 flood, 1 solo capture, and 1 assisted capture. And team score wise, because of the way the game went, a bit of a stomp. As you can see, we've traded 3 ships to 11. Only 1,584 base experience, and distribution wise this time more gun damage than torpedo damage, which should be the norm, although typically you will want to do a little more than 36,000, but that's just the way things are. Anyhow, with that said, this was our follow-up commentary onto the Smaland. As you can see, I put quite some time onto her. And we went over the captain and modules in the inter-game commentary. Anyhow, 2 million free experience Smaland. Is she worth 2 million? Again, my answer still remains no, but she is an exceptionally fun ship. So if you're a destroyer player, or if you're just looking for a different type of destroyer, the Smaland certainly does offer you something unique. Fairly unique outside of the USS Black, more or less. And the USS Black is currently a steel ship. She is going to be removed at the end of this patch, actually, from the store. and then we'll probably be reintroduced toward the end of the year, I would imagine, close to Christmas. I think she's slated for patch 9.6 or 9.8 or something. But currently the USS Black is very difficult to acquire if you don't already have her, so the Smaland is the only real chance you'll have at getting a radar destroyer that uses its radar to really hunt enemy destroyers. Anyhow, that'll be all for now. I hope you enjoyed this second look at the Smaland, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers.